we can bring down our most central teaching, the Ten Commandments, to an even more central teaching, just the letter Aleph, or the word Anochi, the I of the Ten Commandments. And the teaching is that there is an Anochi in the world. There is an I, and it is not us. There is an I, but it is Hashem. Therefore, we must live our lives in total commitment and dedication to the Anochi, to the I of the Aseret HaDibrot. Or, to put it another way, as my friend Rabbi Jack Reamer once said, there are two central teachings in Judaism, just two central teachings. The first is there is only one God, and the second is that it is not me. Those are the two central teachings. There's only one God, and it isn't me. And that's the central lesson of the central teaching moment in Jewish history. Judaism is a responsibility, a commitment, an obligation to serve God, the Anochi. And if we fulfill these obligations, then we can achieve redemption. If we pass on them, then we lose the opportunity of a lifetime. Literally, we literally lose the opportunity of our lifetime. It was Ruth herself who taught us this when she said, El asher telchi elech, where you go, I will go. Where you sleep, I will sleep. Where your people are my people, your God is my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. She is teaching us that Judaism is not an option, it's a responsibility. And that's what she says to Naomi. It is my responsibility to go with you and be with you. I have linked my faith to your people. And that's the central plot which underlies the entire book of Ruth. In biblical times, there was a concept called yibum. What is this concept of yibum? If a man died childless, then his brother was obligated to marry the widow. This process was called yibum. The brother of the deceased brother had to marry the widow. In the book of Ruth, we see, however, that this obligation to marry the widow was not only upon the brother, but it was upon any close relative. Someone was obligated to come forth and redeem the deceased's brother by marrying his widow. In the case of Ruth, no one wanted to fulfill the obligation and marry Ruth. So Ruth approached Boaz in the middle of the night in the fields, and she basically asked him to fulfill his responsibility, his obligation. And Boaz responded, Goel Anochi. There's that word again, Anochi, I. Boaz says, Goel Anochi, I am the Redeemer. But in fact, there is a closer relative than me, and he has the responsibility before me. In the end, that relative, who's known as Ploni Almoni, so-and-so, shirked his responsibility. He did not marry Ruth and redeem the soul of Elimelech. So Boaz came along and became the Redeemer, the Goel Anochi. The relative was consigned to perpetual anonymity as so-and-so, Ploni Almoni, a nobody. But by abandoning his responsibility, he wasted his destiny. On the other hand, Boaz, who carried out his responsibility, is the father, the great-grandfather of the Messiah. Simply by fulfilling his responsibilities, Boaz was able to bring about the Messiah. According to the Holy Zohar, the purpose of Yibum was to fill the place of the soul in the world. When a person died, his work could be carried out by his descendants, and a new child born by the Yibum union would serve as a receptacle for the soul of the deceased person. In this manner, the dead lived on through the Yibum marriage. Today, we no longer have Yibum. We no longer have that. It's not practiced because we're no longer holy enough to produce the desired effect, and our minds might be distracted by inappropriate, lustful thoughts. But to a certain extent, we have the same concept. Yibum is about accepting responsibility to carry on the mission and work of the dead in order to keep their souls alive. And we too can keep the souls alive of our holy ancestors by accepting our responsibility in life and carrying on their holy work. When we do that, we keep their souls alive. So the Ten Commandments teach us that we have an obligation and a responsibility to serve Hashem. It's not an option, it's a responsibility. But the book of Ruth reminds us that when we fulfill this responsibility, we can carry the souls of our loved ones and perhaps even create the Messiah. Now I want to close with a story. There's a friend with whom I study Torah every week who recently told me the following story that I want to leave you with. The story reminds us of what we have the potential to do if we only recognize our responsibilities in life. 35 years ago, this man had a son who tragically died as an infant. The baby went into respiratory distress, and even though an ambulance was called, the ambulance was unable to bring the baby to the hospital in enough time. And so, this baby tragically died. Now, after 30 years in a very successful business, this man decided that he wanted to retire and do something else. And he became, my friend told me the story a week ago, but I've known him for 5 years. After 30 years in business, he became a medic. And he started working in an ambulance. And just recently, he got promoted to being the driver of the ambulance. And then 2 weeks ago, he was called to a doctor's office. And the doctor said, there is a baby who turns out was the same age as this man's baby when his son died. This baby is in tremendous respiratory distress. This baby needs to be rushed to the hospital immediately. The doctor said, I don't even know if the baby can make it. And the man said to the mother, let's go. And he took the baby in the ambulance and they rushed to the hospital. And they brought the baby into the emergency room. And thankfully, they were able to arrive in enough time and the baby was saved. And would you know it? The man wandered out of the emergency room, lifted up his eyes, and he saw, with tears in his eyes, he saw a plaque that he and his wife had placed in that hospital in his son's memory 35 years ago. My friends, we all have a responsibility in life. And when we accept our responsibility in life, when we chase down our responsibility, when we look our responsibility in the eye, we have the potential to bring souls to life.